accidents which killed some of our visionaries who could have made us a nuclear superpower. Despite the fact that India was going through its own set of problems. 1962 we had a war, 1965 we had a war. So India was struggling.
India conducted 3 underground nuclear tests in the Pokhran race.
And he announced in 1965 that within 18 months India can have a nuclear bomb. We were robbed. I'm sorry, but there's no other way to say it. Despite sitting on a gold mine of energy resources, thorium's 25% deposits of the world are in India. They lie in our beaches and our coastline. Despite that, we are not a nuclear superpower. The West is enjoying clean nuclear energy and it has done so for decades. We are still struggling and buying our coal, buying oil, natural gas to power our electricity. Why is it so? Why is it that despite such a huge amount of energy resources, India is not able to be a nuclear superpower? Why is it that a huge amount of deposit which can power our nation's electricity requirement for centuries, we are still not able to be energy self-reliant? This video will dwell into two more important aspects. One is that every time India tried to be self-reliant, we were shoved back down. We were shown sanctions, we were shown the door, we were shown restrictions. And the other end, there were certain key accidents that really hurt us very bad. Accidents which killed some of our visionaries who could have made us a nuclear superpower. Stay tuned till the very end as I unravel each of this. In 1947, the British left us broken. The world looked at India as a charity case. We were very poor, we were very destitute. Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was industrializing and gradually things were moving. But there was one man who was not ready to take this down, or at least take it without a fight. Dr. Homi Jahangir Bhabha. He realized one thing, that if India wanted power, India had to be self-reliant or Atmanirbhar. This was the first case or the first time when Atmanirbharta was talked about in independent India. Dr. Bhabha knew that energy is not just a small thing, it is a matter of freedom for a country. Remember, back then, oil and coal were the biggest power generating sources and the West controlled both of them. Middle East was pretty much under West control. They were close allies. So anytime Saudi Arabia decides to block oil supplies to India, we will be choked. So any nation or any enemy can attack us without firing a single bullet. So Dr. Bhabha did not want this. He said, let us get rid of all of this. Let us have a radical solution. Nuclear independence. Now, as simple as it sounds, it has many complexities. But two good aspects of this is the economics of nuclear power is very favorable. First of all, a small pellet of uranium can generate the kind of energy which probably requires 1 ton of coal or about 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas and almost 564 liters of oil. As compared to other sources of energy, the land requirement for generating nuclear power is also much lesser. In fact, it is very land efficient. So on one end, you get a lot more output than the rest. On the other end, the biggest source input, which is land, is also much lesser in requirement as compared to others. So nuclear fit the bill for a poor India, which was very aspirational for self-reliance. But the key point here is that Dr. Bhabha was not just about thinking in terms of nuclear power plant. He wanted to cut off India and shield it from Western dominance. He told the world that India will not be a beggar. So favorable economics, great. But apart from all of that, it was the protection that India needed from Western influence that propelled this move to a big extent. And Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri encouraged him big way, despite the fact that India was going through its own set of problems. 1962 we had a war, 1965 we had a war. So India was struggling. Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan was the nara, so we were struggling for food. But despite that, the idea of nuclear self-reliance was not put in abeyance. It was focused on and emphasized on very well. Uranium, as good as it is, it's not available in India, and the West was aware about it. So the West thought that how is India going to be nuclear power self-dependent? So Dr. Bhabha thought of a radically different solution. He decided to generate nuclear power, but from a different element, not uranium. He found thorium, which was vastly available in our coastline. That is where he thought of a new nuclear program. So conventionally and through thorium, there are two different methods used to generate nuclear power. I'll talk about both of them. So firstly, uranium as an element has to undergo enrichment to meet the need for generating nuclear power and also to become a nuclear weapon.
So uranium has to be destabilized using a neutron. Once it is destabilized, it undergoes split up, and this splitting up is called nuclear fission. This produces a lot of heat. That heat is collected inside a nuclear reactor and pushed into a large water body that generates enough heat to convert water into steam, and that steam has enough force to move a turbine.
This is how the movement of the turbine starting from nuclear fission generates electricity. So nuclear power in a conventional way is generated this way. So unlike the conventional mechanism, thorium has a different science to it.
So what you do is you use neutron from an element called plutonium that is used to destabilize the nucleus of thorium. Upon destabilization, thorium undergoes fission, so that generates a lot of heat, but it results in the byproduct of uranium-233 and also protactinium, that these are two elements. Protactinium in itself generates a lot of heat up along with thorium. So there are two stages or two elements which are already generating a lot of heat, which can be used to power a nuclear reactor that can generate enough heat to convert water into steam, and hence generate electricity by moving turbines. Apart from that, you get enriched uranium, which is collected and destabilized using a separate neutron once again to create another nuclear energy.
So when you use thorium, you need 3 different nuclear reactors, and each stage produces enough heat and has a source of energy generation in itself. In conventional method, it's only uranium in one reactor which converts into steam. Here it is 3 stages and 3 levels of power generation which is possible because there are 3 levels of heat being generated in different reactors. So this was a game-changing mechanism which Dr. Bhabha had invented, and he worked really hard on it. This led to the formation of Bhabha Atomic Research Center, BARC. This was under the financial assistance or financial aid given by the Tata Group under the leadership of J.R.D. Tata. India always intended to use nuclear to secure its energy independence. But something happened. After the 1962 war with China, which ended in a ceasefire, in 1964 October, China tested a nuclear weapon. This was the first nuclear test it conducted. They called it Project 596. So they tested a nuclear weapon. This test shocked the whole world, and India was most worried because a neighbor with whom we have just had a war has tested a nuclear weapon. While this was happening, tensions were brewing on the Western Front also. India was about to have a tough fight or in the verge of going to war with Pakistan. And we had it. In 1965, India had to fight Pakistan once again. So that again tied us down. When all of this happened, with all these difficulties faced, Dr. Bhabha said one thing. It's high time that we have to become a nuclear power. And he announced in 1965 that within 18 months, India can have a nuclear bomb. A nuclear weapon in India's hand can act as a great deterrence to prevent all the future wars, be it with Pakistan or with China. So this was a necessary thing. This plan, of course, terrified global powers. Everybody was already unhappy with the fact that India was becoming independent in nuclear power or self-reliant in nuclear power, and on top of it an atomic bomb. Nobody wanted it. They were already disappointed that China had tested it. So at that point of time there was a huge diplomatic pressure in India, but that was simply not working. So something strange and something dangerous happened. The year was 1966, month was January. We had 2 major casualties. Our beloved Prime Minister Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri ji went to Tashkent, signed a deal. On his way back, we come to know he passed away. Reports claimed there was a heart attack, but no postmortem was done. The family kept shouting it's poison, but we still don't know the reality. But that was not enough, and the nation was grieving. We had another shocker. Exactly 13 days later, January 24th, Dr. Homi Bhabha, the brain behind our nuclear future, boards Air India Flight 101. It crashes at Montreux, Switzerland. No survivors. Everybody questions how it happened, what had happened. The reasons revealed are poor communication or communication failure. Well, we all know who benefits by the death of a nuclear scientist in a nation. The nation's adversaries. We cannot take the name of somebody, but clearly nobody can be ruled out. Two leaders, two patriots, both of them dead in the same month. If you think this is a matter of coincidence, I certainly don't. The intelligence agencies in the West were active, even KGB in USSR was very active. The Cold War was freezing, and suddenly two men who mattered the most are no more. Surprisingly, there was not much media coverage back then. And to be fair, today I don't feel surprised about it, because those days also the media was controlled by the intelligence agencies of the world. They ensured that not too many questions get asked. What we see today is a modern version of what used to happen. With Dr. Homi Jahangir Bhabha gone, the West made its next move. Well, trust me, if there's somebody who understands how to make use of a situation, it's the West. They announced and launched the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty in 1968, and 191 nations had to sign it. The surprising part is that NPT clearly says that your nuclear facilities will be subject to audit by IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency. It essentially means that the West would know what kind of nuclear facilities you have, what you are doing with it, and they have the right to question. So you may have a nuclear facility to enrich uranium for nuclear power, but they may question you that whether you are enriching uranium to create weapon grade uranium. So essentially it's a kind of compromise on self-reliance for any nation who wishes to be energy independent. In this kind of a situation, what strikes me is a hypocrisy. By the time 1968 had come, US had tested more than 420 to 440 nuclear weapons. Russia had done about 200 plus. China from 1964 to 1968 had done 7 nuclear tests. Yes, 7 of them in a matter of 4 years. So essentially it's saying that we have made our weapons. Now if you do something, we'll keep an eye on it. You have to disclose everything. In short, you can't be self-reliant. We can be. We can have nuclear power. And we have the right to question you on any nuclear activity that you take up. So, by asking us to sign the NPT, they created a nuclear apartheid. They tried to starve our scientists to submission. They wanted us weak, they wanted us vulnerable. We just did not bow down to them. They cut off our money and fuel, but not our spirit. We maintained our stance that India will only use nuclear energy to generate power to meet its energy requirements. But deep down, India and India's leadership knew that we have to protect our territorial integrity and sovereignty. The future of defense is not fighting a war. Nuclear power will be a great deterrent which will ensure that India doesn't have to get into the kind of conflicts which it does, which eventually leads to draining of resources and loss of lives. Amidst all of this, there was a lot of pressure, but India kept smiling and finally showed its smile in a very unique way. 1974 Pokhran, the Smiling Buddha. This was India's first nuclear test successfully done. And this was not the only one. Many decades later,
almost 25 years in 1998, we did the second Pokhran test.
Today, at 15:45 hours, India conducted 3 underground nuclear tests in the Pokhran zone.
Second time again under the leadership of Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, this test upon success attracted a lot of criticism globally. The US sanctioned us once again, but it was only a matter of 2 years when the sanctions were removed and everything was business as usual. The US has decided that it doesn't want to be the big daddy. It is pretty happy to take care of its backyard in the southern and western hemisphere, and it is going to leave the rest of the regions to fend for themselves. So in this kind of a scenario, it's a great opportunity for any self-respecting nation like India, which seeks energy independence, to pursue its interests further. And just when the time had come, India's union government launched its nuclear policy. It was called the SHANTI Act. It permits 49% private equity and foreign equity investments in nuclear power. It aims to create 100 gigawatts of nuclear power capacity by 2047. Today, we barely have 10 gigawatts. SHANTI stands for Sustainable Harnessing for Advancement of Nuclear Energy for Transforming India. The keyword, transforming India.